We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Has progressive policy brought the collapse of the Democratic Party closer to fruition? And does New York City even come close to allowing its citizens to protect themselves? Well, these are just two of the many questions we're asking today right here on Liberty Nation Radio on the Radio American Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides, and we have quite the show set up for you today. Remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. Political parties come and go or morph, and on a long enough timeline eventually become something they never were. But who studies the rise and fall and inevitable demise of a party? And are there any precursors that we, the public, can identify? Well, someone who's been thinking through this particular problem is longtime host of this here radio show and senior political analyst at LibertyNation.com, Mr. Tim Donner. Thanks for coming on, Tim.
Hello, Mark.
So, Tim, Joe Biden, he posited that this Republican Party is not the Republican Party of your fathers or grandfathers. But couldn't the same just as easily be said for the Democratic Party?
Well, yes, because they're sort of interdependent in terms of because there's a certain number of constituencies and the two parties fight over them, but they haven't for a long time because pretty much, the Democrats were thought of as the party of the poor, the Republicans were the party of the rich, and then they would fight over the middle class.
And of course, the Democrats were the party of the KKK, which many people still think they are, Tim.
Well, certainly a lot of Republicans think that and are quick to point it out. But look, once Donald Trump descended that golden escalator at Trump Tower 7 years ago, everything began to change. The party of the rich and the party of the poor suddenly seemed to in some sense, change places. Particularly with working class men, but working class people in general. Here's how one writer put it, which I think says it all. The Republican Party has traded in soccer moms for Walmart dads. And that's basically the Republican constituency now. And it's almost unthinkable that the Republicans that we grew up with being told they were the Rockefellers, the rich people, the wealthy, the billionaires, that now, years later, decades later, you get people like Jeff Bezos, who represents true wealth and billionaires in this country, Bill Gates. These people are Democrats. They're creatures of the left. So now you have the Republicans as the party of the middle class, the working class, and the Democrats as the party of the very rich and very poor, the coastal elites, and the people who basically serve them. To put it in starkest terms. So this is the most significant political realignment in 60 years, and people don't talk about it much because, of course, Trump's personality is so outsized. But what he's done to the political equation is the biggest realignment since Democrats and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and Democrats turned from the old KKK party to the party of Black people and minorities. Although, in fairness, that, of course, had started under FDR, but the party still continued to attract Southern racists, to put it simply, until the 1960s when it began to turn.
Your description of the Walmart dads, that really struck a memory in my mind. There's when Margaret Thatcher came into power in the UK, she created such an economic boom that the Conservative Party, which was the party of the rich, the wealthy, the landowners, and then you had tradesmen, plumbers, carpenters, bricklayers who were starting their own businesses unfettered. And these became the new middle class. Mm-hmm. Everybody was starting a business. And the Labour Party, which is the equivalent of the Democratic Party in America, they really became as we call them over here, the champagne socialists. And it really just, right. The Walmart dad versus the champagne socialist, it really strikes a chord for me. Now, Tim, it seems that the progressive takeover of the Democratic Party that we're seeing, it's really given the Democrats a crisis of identity. So Biden, he tries to appease one faction or another and ends up pretty much disappointing on all sides. Now, is this inevitable for a leader of a party that doesn't really seem quite comfortable with expressing what it is?
Well, that's not really a problem that Donald Trump had, did he? Expressing clearly what he believes. So it's a huge contrast, because the truth is in the joke. Trump's agenda was crystal clear, and he achieved most of it, and that which he tried to achieve. With Biden, he's simply not Trump. That's the only reason he got elected, because he wasn't Donald Trump. And Trump was the only thing that united the Democratic Party. The progressives, the mainstreamers, the establishment types, the Republicans, the never Trump Republicans who came over to join them. That coalition had only one thing in common, really. I mean, they had essentially progressive principles, but the schism between progressives and the establishment was sort of delayed, was put off because of their common obsession with taking down Trump. And has that
obsession disappeared?
No, it's going to come back as soon as Trump announces for 2024. But the point is, left to themselves without Trump as a factor for the last 2 years, they haven't been able to agree on anything because they didn't do the hard work before the 2020 election, because they didn't need to. All they needed to do was join in the chorus of trying to take Trump down. So, Joe Biden came in, at a very thin mandate when you consider what happened in Congress. Republicans picked up seats in the House and Democrats had the slimmest possible majority in the Senate. And then Biden comes in and starts trying to act like he's Franklin Delano Roosevelt with a massive mandate when he had nothing of the kind. He was really a lot more like George W. Bush in 2001, who won a narrow election and understood it, that he wasn't going to try to be something that the people did not elect him to be. Biden never got that message. And obviously, neither did Joe Manchin. And I will add that Joe Manchin really should be the man of the year for 2021 and maybe 22 as well, because if it wasn't for him, we would have inflation perhaps double what it is now, trillions more in unsustainable social safety net spending. So he should be given a nod for his courage I think downright heroism.
Well, I think history will actually look kindly on Joe Manchin, because it's not just the nation's economy that he saved by refusing to add extra money printing inflationary pressure. I think he may have also saved the Democratic Party from themselves.
Exactly. He's done that. For the future of the party, if they had done what they wanted to do, which was a clear sort of scorched earth, which is, we know we're not going to get reelected, so let's just ram through as much of our socialist stuff as we can before they kick us out of office. That's not a solid electoral strategy, but it would be far worse if Joe Manchin had gone along to get along, and to some degree to, of course, also Kirsten Sinema.
We're talking here with Tim Donner on the role, function, and future of the Democratic Party. And we'll be back with Tim in just a short moment after this break. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We're doing it for real, really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style, fight for freedom.
Maybe tracking polls sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.